fun, right, Bailey?
That's right.
Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Fun Fans Podcast. I'm your host, James Dillard. With me, as always, my co-host, Bailey Jackson. How you doing, Bailey?
I'm good. Hope everybody out there is.
Doing well. As you see, we have a special guest with us tonight. Just hang on, and we will introduce him. It was an awesome slate of college football games this weekend, and hopefully we'll get a chance to go all the way back to that Friday night game. But the special guest on tonight's show, you're definitely not going to want to miss, and you're going to get plenty of data for to add with your fun for tonight. But first, the Fun Fans are a proud part of Greenville Sports Media Podcasting Network. If you're a true sports fan, Greenville Sports Media is perfect for you. Find various nationwide podcasts, articles, and other sports media at greenvillesportsmedia.com, who can also be found on all forms of social media, just like the Fun Fans. The Fun Fans Podcast is the official podcast for Clemson fans.
Yep, and the official place to get all your
Look like Bailey froze on my end.
Yes, he did.
He's doing his promo for Rubens. If you've never seen it before,
28 Anderson Road in Piedmont.
Perfect.
Their website is Rubens.com. Rubens is a great place to eat for all sports fans, and we thank them for their support.
We definitely do. All right, well, let's just jump straight into it. Okay, our guest, he's a leading voice in sports business and fan analytics with over 25 years of experience tracking how fans engage with teams, leagues, and brands. As president of SBRnet Incorporated, he heads the sports marketing analytics platform, a go-to resource for universities, teams, and brands seeking insights into sports fandom, consumer behavior, gambling trends, licensed merchandise sales, and sponsorship opportunities. He has guided research at the Sports and Fitness Industry Association and Sports Scan Info, and today he works with financial firms, global brands, and realtors to decode retailers. Well, they're realtors as well. Not realtors, they're retail stuff. They're retailers, but retailers to decode shifts in the sports marketplace. He's also the host of My First Job in Sports podcast and co-founder of the Get in the Game Sports Business Career Conference, helping the next generation break into the industry. A frequent conference speaker, he blends deep data expertise with an accessible style that brings numbers to life. Whether unpacking fan engagement, college sports, or the business of sports media, he equips audiences with actionable insights that drive smarter decisions. So welcome to the show, Mr. Neil Schwartz. Neil, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing great on this Sunday evening. Watched a couple of pro games today, watched some college games on Saturday, but I had a real treat yesterday. I live down in South Florida, and I am a hockey fan, and I'm a Florida Panthers season ticket holder, and I got to get my picture taken with the Stanley Cup yesterday with my wife and I. We were invited to the Fan Appreciation Day, and we got to get our picture taken with the Stanley Cup, which is pretty cool.
That's very
especially
cool.
If you're a hockey fan, or a sports fan. I'm a sports fan. I mean, I can't deny. But my business, SBRnet, as you mentioned, we are focused on the business side of sports. I couldn't tell you, who has a better batting average, who has a better on-field, OPS or whatever. I couldn't tell you any of that. But when it comes to really understanding how teams generate revenue and how teams target specific groups of fans and how, one team wants to move from one city to another because let's just say they're not being successful where they are, or a league wants to expand into different cities. All of those kinds of questions are the things that I'm able to answer at a variety of different levels. Look, I love the sports business, especially the business side of sports. All about data. My daughter likes to call me the oldest living data nerd. I'm not sure I would go there, but you have to own it sometimes.
That's right.
And guys, I appreciate you having me on the show tonight.
No problem. And so there's got to be somebody older. Bailey, I think he answered my question already, and it's definitely a fun fan experience to have your picture taken with the Stanley Cup. But
fun. It was awesome. I not only did I have my picture taken, of course, my wife and I, but I also learned how to use the AI function in on the new iOS on my iPhone to kind of wipe my wife out of the picture. So I'm just standing next to the Stanley Cup all by myself.
Oh boy.
Now I do love my wife. I will go on record as saying I do love my wife, but I just had to I wanted to get a picture of me alone. And of course, so I used AI. What can
save one with and save one without?
Hey, I have about 8.
So you actually mentioned, you look at like relocation or like the athletics in Sacramento and what that does to Oakland and then moving to Las Vegas.
Yes.
But I'm curious, have you done any research with like the talk of new football conferences, these mega conferences, and what that may do to college football?
Well,
or
first
other athletics in college.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, Coach, is that athletics, especially at the college level, we are going through this incredible change. Number one is the way that all sports are being consumed by viewers, by fans. No longer are people relying on the networks. I remember, I went to Syracuse, and I remember even, when I was out of school, you had to rely on the games that were on CBS or Fox or, one of the TV networks from ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. There's so many games, there's so many ways that you can consume. Here's a couple little tidbits for you with respect to that. So year over year, that would be 2023 to 2024, streaming of college athletics has increased almost 27%. That's, by the way, a big number. Mm-hmm. Over the last 2 years, it's increased 63%. So streaming has just really taken over in a lot of ways. And in fact, college actually was a little late to the streaming party. Mm-hmm. It seems like NFL, Major League Baseball, even the English Premier League Soccer League have, really, embraced streaming. Look, streaming is now embraced by all sports. Mm-hmm. And it's up across the board. And it's really been a big change in the nature, in the way that fans consume sports. It's also changed the way people bet on sports, but that's a story for a whole other show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how I watch Clemson baseball. And you can get there may have been one series last year that wasn't on a streaming service, whereas in the past, it started a couple years ago, but there was a time in the not so distant past that you couldn't get a Clemson baseball game on TV. It was extremely, extremely rare for sure. I was watching Clemson volleyball just the other night.
Yeah,
I watched
Clemson.
You were watching
soccer.
Clemson volleyball.
Volleyball, yeah. I was looking for my daughter in the stands, so every time the ball would go that way, hey, there's Grayson, kind of thing. So we lost.
And so just to I pay for the Major League Baseball subscription because I'm a huge Baltimore Orioles fan. I'm in the top 1% of viewers on the app. They'll send me a email in a couple weeks since the season's over today, and I'll know what percentage I was in this year. Last year it was 1%.
So speaking of all that though, and that's changing, I'm assuming that's increasing the revenue for all the sports, but it's adding some revenue to sports that used to not be revenue sports.
Well, it is, but this is kind of like a double-edged sword in this situation. Number one, that you have massive consolidation in college sports. With the power conferences. Obviously people like the SEC and the Big Ten, although I don't even know what they call themselves. I don't even know what they call themselves anymore.
Yeah, they still say 10.
I know. And the Southeastern, I said the SEC, but there's just so many different situations now. The one thing though, guys, that it's doing, and I'm not saying this is necessarily good or bad, but it's creating a situation of more haves and have-nots. Huh. And while the haves have been able to take the money that they're generating from streaming, from sports gambling, they're getting, in some cases, they're getting, a commission, which, by the way, I have a real problem with.
Wow.
In general, but they're using that money in order to support women's volleyball and women's soccer, women's basketball. But those are really the schools that have. You've got a lot of have-nots out there. And it's really creating a lot of have and have-nots. And by the way, NIL is doing the same exact thing.
Right.
While it's been a great thing, I think that athletes should be paid. I do think, though, the NCAA has managed to, bollocks this up, to use the word that some of my English friends like to use. It's the Wild West, and it shouldn't have been.
Right.
It should have been planned. It should have been guardrailed. It should have been enforced. It should have been bench. I mean, every word I could use to describe it from a positive sense has gone the other way.
Correct.
It
was definitely not
this conversation multiple times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, without a doubt. So that's a good question, Bailey. And I had notes that we didn't get to last week's show that on the field this year, and it's early. I do think some of those bigger money conferences they're starting to maybe separate themselves a little more, at least like they have claimed that they've done in the past. But speaking of college football specifically, Neil, I've also mentioned on the show, we talked about how, and this is one thing that was different. If you go back, we're a handful of years, handful to us is a decade or more maybe. But the first week of college football was unreal. All the kickoff shows and the almost like bowl games. But then the second week, to be honest, was almost a letdown comparatively, because almost every team is playing, a smaller school, one of the group of 5 teams or something. And it seemed like it went back up the next week. But then last week, it seemed like a bunch of the big schools played. But then yesterday was just awesome. It was like the first week all over again. Is this a marketing ploy? Does the data show they're doing this on purpose?
It's a money play. No question about it. And the data is strong when it comes to viewership. The viewership numbers are strong. And as long as the viewership numbers remain strong, they're going to do everything they can in order to maximize the opportunities. Hey, look, I'm sure if college football could find a way to add 1 or 2 more games to their season, they would do it because, of the money that's involved. But, I know that, there's a lot of folks on the academic side of college sports, are really, trying to, keep the number of games where they are, because again, they are supposed to be student athletes.
Correct.
But with NIL, they're just paid athletes as far as I'm concerned. And, the other side of it, of course, is, one of the things that I talk about a lot is fan engagement and how these universities are leveraging their conference activities, the streaming numbers and things like that to generate more revenue, because engaged fans spend more money.
Right.
They spend more money on licensed merch. They spend more money when they're at a game. They attend more games. They travel. Clemson fans travel very well. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
But on a percentage basis, I'm not saying on a volume basis, because look, there's schools like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, they travel in incredible numbers. But as a percent of total, let's say total fans, or as a percent of even, the number of fans nationally, Clemson has a very high percentage of fans who travel to support the team.
The $2 bills.
Yep.
And that means money. That's money. Money.
For sure.
Yes. Interestingly enough, Clemson, just real quickly, so look, I'm all about measurement. I'm all about data. We've developed a number of very specific data points to help measure fan engagement, because really there's just so many different ways. There are some people, we collect social media data. We collect television viewing data. We collect, Google search information. Well, guess what I do?
Okay.
I combine all of those things together and 8 other categories to create this thing called the Fanverse. And what the Fanverse does, and I've gotten, there's a lot of science behind it. My data scientist created this, but what the Fanverse does, it literally combines a number of what I like to call active engagement categories. Those are categories that you need to spend money for in order to participate. You need to, if you're buying licensed merch, you're laying out the money. If you're going to travel with your team, you're spending money on hotel, maybe airfare, maybe gas for travel, maybe bringing the kids, food. I can go on and on. And literally, this engagement situation is really what helps to drive revenue, or whether it's college teams, professional teams, startup leagues, you name it. It's all about engagement.
Well, then that makes sense. And does that mean the Fun Fans are part of the Fanverse now?
They are.
Well, look at there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, my kids My kids will love that. Well, that kind of leads into, is it the next question, Bailey? Where are we?
Yeah, I kind of skipped around.
Fan engagement, where I think this really does. So I thought about this question with a number standpoint and fan engagement. You had these huge games this weekend.
Yes.
With Penn State, Oregon, Coach Kiffin. All you hear about is how Coach Kiffin and Coach Franklin, their records against top teams.
Yes.
They're 5-30 something or 2 and whatever. I heard something today about Kirby Smart's only 1-7 against Alabama. Talking about these coaches that are hugely successful. Do those tidbits of points, is that media clickbait, or are those actual potential fan disengagement numbers?
No, I don't. Look, if a team, the number one thing about fan engagement is winning and losing. Let's face it. We love winners, and we love to turn our backs on losers. I will tell you, though, one thing, though, college sports is a little bit insulated from the whole winning and losing situation. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason it's college sports, of course, are students.
Right.
Every 4 years, there's a new crop of students that, comes after every year. There's a new crop of students that comes in, and, you're always kind of, churning that fan base around. Look, the alumni stays the same. You're always going to be an alumni of Clemson. I went to Syracuse, always going to be an alum of Syracuse. I wish they were better in football. Wish they were better in basketball too, but they have won national championships.
Right.
So I am going to kind of leave it at that. But again, college sports is a little bit insulated from, winning and losing like professional sports, especially when you look at, I hate to say it, you look at some of the NBA teams or even NFL teams. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they don't sell out that stadium. And, and they just don't. The Miami Dolphins, it's getting to the point where Miami Dolphin fans are going to start showing up with paper bags over their heads.
Yes.
I hate to say it. I am a Dolphin fan.
Yeah, because it's so hot.
It is.
If Jacksonville's got a swimming pool, it was full the first week when they killed the Panthers.
Today, and I don't know if you watched any of the Philadelphia Tampa Bay game, but every 5 minutes they reminded us that it was like 90 degrees in Tampa today with a heat index of like 101, and they just kept like hammering it. And you look and you saw players dropping like flies. There's no question about it. It's you got to keep hydrated and keep cool and all of those things. But college sports is really unique in that it's just not as winning and losing oriented. If you're a fan of Clemson, you're going to watch the games.
That's right.
If you're a fan of Syracuse, you're going to watch the games. And then of course you're always rotating the students every year. So there's a whole new crop of fans to engage with.
Without a doubt.
Obviously it would hurt the revenue specifically on game day, because Clemson, when we go to every Clemson game, okay,
right.
we're there.
Right.
Section I, row E, 6 and 8. That's my seats. But some weeks everybody's there, and some weeks the top levels are not quite as full. Right. And that would affect, I would imagine, the bottom line of that day's revenue.
Unless the seats are sold and people just aren't showing up.
Most of them are sold. It's the concessions.
Yes. Look, there's so much that goes into game day. I think sometimes, and a lot of people don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes game day in a college and or a professional stadium, arena, whatever you want to call it. The level of things that go on are just unfathomable. Everything from, of course, concessions to licensed merch sales to, philanthropy. Most teams now are into a lot of philanthropic a lot of philanthropic things. Right. So, they're collecting money, they're raising money, they're doing the 50-50 drawing thing. You just, now what you're seeing is you're seeing an awful lot of product sampling going on in both college and pro arenas. And here's the other thing you now see. In states that are allowing online gambling, you're starting to see gambling kiosks even
in the stadium.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I have a problem with that, just to let you know. I really do.
Well, in South Carolina, that is not legal. And this is the first year that we have sold alcohol and by we, I mean Clemson, has sold alcoholic beverages this is my first chance to use this graphic.
Go for it.
This was the first game against LSU. The alcohol sales grossed $467,843.
Sounds like $500,000 to me.
I mean, that's
and 3/4 of that was just a small group of LSU fans.
Those guys are something
drink more than others. There's no question.
Right. So it's definitely big money, and it's definitely. I think I saw an ad for the first time painted on the field during the University of SC Gamecocks game last night. It was like some tax preparer. Yeah. I believe that's become
tax slayer or something like that.
Something like that, but just painted on there.
Hey, well, James, I sell just at the high school level. I sell first downs. I sell trips to the red zone. I sell everything because that's a way we generate money for our boosters and our football club and things like that. So it's just a smaller level, but same concept.
For sure,
it is the same concept. I think though that you, Coach, it sounds like you though have some guardrails. Established for what you're willing to sell and not. I mean, would you do a deal with gambling and online? Well, you're in South Carolina where they don't allow online.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Yeah. Would you sell an ad to a strip club or, someplace like that? And I'm not trying to offend anybody. That's not what I'm trying to do here, but I sense there's some guardrails in place.
Well, yeah, I even get a little squirrely about like a local restaurant that is also a bar and grill.
Right.
That we're at a school, we're at a public school. Sure. And so, but there are some things I definitely would not sell.
I get it.
If they got a meat and 3 on the menu, we can go with that. But if it's nothing but wings and beer, maybe we got to draw a line.
French fries work too.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you got a great sponsor in Reuben. So I mean, you've got, at least you're working above board on that one.
That's right, for sure. Well, speaking of you being a Syracuse fan, I appreciate you bringing that up multiple times after y'all beat us last week.
Yeah, well, I was hoping somebody would say something.
Well, but it's just so I feel like we lost all over again. And we can just talk football, some guy talk here for just a second. I mean, is it bad, Bailey, that did we lose all over again when Syracuse got beat? Especially how they got beat by Duke.
I'm gonna try. Like I was watching,
that does not help.
Multiple games yesterday, and I think you're gonna see this more and more and more, like in the NFL. And the guy on CBS said you're gonna see more of this because it's gonna be more like the NFL because they're more like professional teams now, where they can lose one week and then turn around and do something crazy the next week. That's just how it is now. That's how it's gonna be.
And NIL, I talked earlier at the top of the show about haves and have-nots. You've got a situation now. I do know a little bit about the Syracuse situation. I do know that they have a collective, an NIL collective. I don't know where it's at. I don't know who runs it. I was actually asked to run it when it first started and declined. But, does Clemson have an NIL collective?
Yes.
We do.
But now aren't the collectives? I thought the collectives were illegal now.
It started. There are multiple revenue.
Yes.
The whole TV revenue lawsuit. I don't know. But yes.
Well, the collectives aren't. The interesting thing is that the collectives, sprang up and really, no rules, no guardrails, no, and you had, I hate to say it, you had schools that were literally just paying students to just pay them. Right. Second string backup, offensive lineman for, University of Texas, was being guaranteed $50,000 in NIL money, and he had to show up at the restaurant once or twice a season, but that's it. And, you've got a situation where, these kids, the first thing out of the mom and dad's mouth is when they go to get, what are you going to give me? What are you going to do for me? How much are you going to pay my son? This is what they're saying.
And I know. I've talked to several college coaches. They're tired of messing,
they're tired of messing. Some of the older and speaking of fan engagement, there are a lot of, when that was first starting, a lot of folks, our age and older, there had to be, apparently they weren't worried about us being disengaged because a lot of folks our age were, shouldn't be like that. And this amateur sports, blah, blah, blah. But we're not, like you say, the college, at least we're not going to turn our backs on Clemson because we love Clemson. If you're a Syracuse fan, it's like I don't even think about it during the game that these kids are getting paid, and I'm just cheering like I've always cheered. So
I will tell you though, what I do think about, and maybe it's just because I'm a little cynical, I'm a baby boomer, I've seen good, seen bad. I'm a little cynical as to what sports gambling may or may not be doing to college sports in particular.
Right.
You got a kid who's a quarterback. He's getting, let's say, $50,000. I just made that number up, by the way. And, the guy that centers on the ball is maybe getting $20,000, if that. And he sees the quarterback driving around a brand new car and, hanging out with better looking girls and eating in better restaurants and all that. And he says, all of a sudden, the center says, you know what? I need to get me some more money too. And, who's to say a gambler's not going to try to, let's say, entice, how about a center, on a shot, sending a couple of shotgun snaps over the quarterback's head.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it changes the outcome of a game. Right. That worries me.
That
worries me. The credibility. I feel that a lot of these things, NIL, sports gambling, are really damaging the credibility of sports, whether it's NIL on the college level or sports gambling at the professional or the college level.
So speaking of that, and I don't want to put you on the spot. We didn't put this in our list, but
that's okay.
Just a ballpark figure. How much money is put on, any given college football game?
I can't tell you that answer because number one, first of all, sports gambling is not legal in every state in the United States. Right now, 29 states have online sports gambling. There's still a bunch that do not. There's and in fact, there's a couple that do not that are huge, Texas and California. So, when they do come online, it's going to be a huge, boom for the, for all of the sports gambling sites. But I can tell you there are over 30 million Americans, 30 million that gamble on sports, whether it's college, professional, women's sports, English Premier League, you name it, NASCAR, 30 million. And there's actually a number in there that actually is a troubling number. And the number is that approximately 3% or almost 100,000 of those people are under the age of 21. Oh, wow. And actually it's more than that. It's under the age of 17, truth be told. I worry about underage gambling. I really do.
They're falsifying some stuff.
Well, it's even built now for the way that age group operates. They operate on their phone. They want instant gratification, and you can literally do parlays at any minute during the game, and you can change them at any minute during the game.
I mean, they have a lot of them have fake IDs. Mm-hmm. A lot of them have their mom and dad's credit card. So in a lot of cases, there's no accountability. You lose $50, you gain, all that. And the other problem, though, and this is something that is the way that the gambling companies market. They know that younger gamblers, especially, are very impressionable, especially at a younger age. I mean, I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not any of those things. But I've seen multiple studies that talk about the human brain doesn't reach full development until like 24, 25 years of age.
Right.
So before that, very impressionable. So you're a kid, you're going to, let's say you're in a state where they allow online gambling. Let's use Florida as an example. You're at a UF game, you got your phone, you got your father's and mother's credit card, you got your fake ID, you sign up for an account. All of a sudden you see, hey, put $50 in your account, and if you win, we give you a 5 times match.
Right.
Oh, so if I win, I get, all of a sudden, the most powerful 2 words in the English language come into play. Free money.
Yep.
And these kids don't. And look, you and I both know there is no such thing as free money.
Amen.
I learned that in economics in the 10th grade. Nothing is free.
No. And if you think it's free, you're not reading between the lines. You're not reading the fine print. You're not even listening. You're just doing.
Well, we both also know that those kids' brains aren't developed, right, Bailey?
That is correct, for sure.
Yeah, we know that for sure. Well, you know what else? Unfortunately, we are out of time because I think, like Neil said earlier, there's some of this we can talk about forever.
Yeah.
But Neil, we appreciate you for being on the show. President, once again, of SBRnet Incorporated, for all your sports research needs, if you're out there listening, and also host of My First Job in Sports podcast, which I will tag and mention when I post this show for sure.
If you get a chance, check us out on SBRnet. If you're interested in data, we sell data to a lot of different people. The My First Job in Sports podcast is actually a lot of fun. I interview students that are usually people in their first through fourth job in sports and talking about how they got their job. Mm-hmm. Because, what a great way to learn how to get a job in sports for the people that already have the jobs. And then also we've got our event every year. It's called Get in the Game. It is focused on helping students of color get jobs in the sports business. I can get into the reasons why we do this and what it's all about, but it's a wonderful event, bringing together brands and retail, not realty, retail.
Not realty, sorry.
Teams, leagues, people like that, to help, again, students understand what it takes to get a job in sports. Guys, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show tonight. And, rock on. Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you. I've caught a couple of clips. I caught a couple of clips of the interviews, and they are pretty cool. But we definitely hope everyone else out there also enjoyed the show. Now you have some math to mix in with your sports. Thanks again to Neil Schwartz for being with us. Check out his company. Check out his podcast. Thanks for checking us out. Don't forget to click subscribe on the Fun Fans Podcast YouTube channel, as well as your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media, and please share. On behalf of the Fun Fans Podcast, Jay Thriller Entertainment, Greenville Sports Media, and Bailey Jackson.
Tigers are back at it next Saturday, noon. Chapel Bill will be in attendance. Take care.
Go Tigers.
Go. I'm watching the Eagles a lot. Go Eagles.
There you go.